All right. I'm going to go ahead and get started. We are right on time, 11 o'clock. Welcome, everybody, to this first webinar that we are doing related to this research project. My name is Pat Strader. I'm the founder of Digital Relativity. I have been working in the travel and tourism space now for more than 25 years, helping destinations, attractions, and brands connect in this meaningful ways with travelers. And this is a really interesting project that we've been working on, and I am really excited. For those of you that know me, you hear me talk about being geeked up. This is the kind of stuff that gets me geeked up. And I'm really excited to dive into this new research. It's going to change how we think about reaching our audiences. And today, I'm thankful to be joined by Susan Bayer,
Hi,
principal,
everyone.
who has led us on this journey with this attitudinal project. And what's really powerful here about this is how this fills the gaps. And that's why this research matters and fills the gaps with the really incredible research that we are all fortunate to have from Longwoods and US Travel and all these other sources. And they tell us a lot about who those people are, what they spend, and those types of information are very, very important and critical. But we really sought through this project to learn, why did travelers choose the destination that they did, and what really triggers them to act. And so this study that we're going to dive into, it shows us how to move away from one size fits all campaigns that speak to everyone the same way, and instead target the messages that truly resonate with these travelers. And so, Susan, thank you so much for joining us today. And before we dive into the details and start having some fun looking at these different segments that we've uncovered, can you tell us just a little bit about Audience Audit and the methodology of how we approach this project?
Happy to do that, Pat. Hi, everyone. I am the CEO of a research agency called Audience Audit. I've been a marketing strategist for over 40 years, which is just a frightening stat right there. But one of the things that I loved when we started talking, Pat, is how much your agency is already focused on utilizing the research that's available in the industry. And I think one of the things that's so wonderful is when we get to stack various research studies on top of each other and learn from all of them. And I think when you and I started this project, what we really wanted to do was add something unique to what was already out there in terms of really good, solid quality research. And that's really the attitudinal segmentation component. So, most of us have seen research that talks about people in terms of their age groups or where they live or their household income or their gender or whatever. And that information is valuable. That's how media gets bought. That's how sort of a lot of organizations look at the world. But I think all of us can recognize that if we could line up 15 people who looked just like us on paper in terms of our age, our ethnicity, how much money we make, what car we drive, and everybody, if you went down the line, would choose a different place to go on vacation, because that's not necessarily driven by our demographics. And so we know this to be true, but a lot of research doesn't reflect it. So the work that we do provides a statistically reliable insight into the mindsets of a particular audience. And then when we use that as a lens to look at all this other information about the choices that they make and the preferences that they have and the challenges that they experience, it gives us some more insight into what's driving their decisions than just trying to align them with their age or how many kids that they have. So that's sort of the goal for this project. So we went out and surveyed a big audience, 2,800 travelers in the US and in Canada, who had traveled to the US within the last year. And we're really trying to understand how they felt about travel, what sort of hole it filled for them, what they were looking for, and why on those trips. And we got, I think, some really great insight. And it's important for all of our listeners to recognize that you and I didn't sit down and decide what these buckets were going to be, what these mindsets were going to be. We didn't have our own assumption. I mean, I'm sure everybody has their own assumptions, but we basically didn't predetermine what this segmentation was going to look like. It's done mathematically. The respondents to the survey rate a whole bunch of statements that we put out there. They can agree completely, disagree completely, something in between. And then this magical thing happens with the statistical analysis that shows us groups of people that stick together because they share a set of attitudes that other groups don't. And it creates this landscape that we can look at. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So it's a highly reliable study from a statistical standpoint. We have less than 2 points margin of error at a 95% confidence level. That means if we ran this thing 100 more times, 95 of those times, we would see the same results as we're seeing now. So it's very reliable. And for those of you that are working in this industry, we want you to know that this is data you can rely on. It's not 12 people sitting around a table in a focus group. This is good stuff. So we're super excited to talk to you about these mindsets that we found and the implications from Pat's standpoint for all of you working in this industry.
Yeah, well, thank you, Susan. And
But
really interesting. I loved it when we started working on this project. This was the first time that our organization had made an investment of this size and this type of research. And I remember you saying to us that it's as much about proving what we think wrong as it is right. And it was just really fascinating to learn about each of these different segments and those mindsets. And I think that there is some really valuable information here. And so, Susan, let's break down each segment, okay? Well, let's talk about how marketers can apply some things right now. And so, let's go ahead, and you've already spoken to that. I'm sorry, I got so excited I forgot
it's
to.
all good. It's all good.
But tell us about first segment that we have, the enthusiastic immersive.
Great. And listen, for those of you who are with us today, I would love for you as we go through these, wait till we've gone through all four and put in the chat which one you think you are. If one of these like really aligns with you, we would love to sort of hear your thoughts on this. Okay, so let's look at the enthusiastic immersives, Pat. So these folks are all in on their experience of going to someplace else. And that what they really embrace is sort of not being a tourist. They really want to experience the culture, the food, the stories. They want to meet and talk with locals. They want to get suggestions from locals about where to go. They love things that are out of the way, that maybe the guidebooks don't include, that's really sort of local legend or great places to eat that nobody else might know about. And they really enjoy connecting with the people wherever they're traveling, and really getting sort of upfront and personal and immersing themselves in the experience of wherever they are.
Yeah, the enthusiastic immersive, the thing that was really interesting to me is they start planning their trips months in advance and they
Yeah.
love every moment of that process. And the way that this group views travel, it's as an art form. It's a way for them to connect really deeply with the destination which they've chosen. And they seek to live like the locals, absorb that local culture, the traditions, and the history. And they're not just tourists, as you said, Susan. And I like this term of cultural explorers, and they view each one of these trips that they take is just opportunity for them to grow and to learn and experience something that's really a lot different from their everyday lives.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also really important to note too that this group of travelers, they are not content to just kind of skim the surface here. They are looking for that depth and the authenticity. Picture folks walking through the locals farmers market and they're learning about like a local delicacy like ramps here in West Virginia,
Mm.
wandering through the historic streets, and they've got this guide that's telling them the stories behind every building that they pass, and they want to be more than visitors when they are in your destination. They truly want to be participants in everyday life. And this dedication to this authenticity, though, it comes with some really high expectations. And I think that it's important to note that overcrowded tourist traps and superficial types of experiences, that is this group's kryptonite. If a destination feels, generic or overly commercial, they're going to look elsewhere. And so to engage with this group, we really need to highlight those unique and those authentic things about your area, your destination. And think about like a campaign that features hidden gems of the area or community festivals, which it was crazy how many folks are interested in those types of things. Or, the behind the scenes interviews with our local artists, our chefs, and our musicians that make our destinations really unique. But I think that it's also important to point out that each story that we tell, it needs to paint a picture of what it's like to live in your destination and showing not only what to do, but why it should matter to these visitors. And so when we focus on this immersive video storytelling or local personalities like makers and traditions, and think of these little short form videos that you can use, or curated these hidden gem types of content with mapping the guides and local secrets and featuring things like local farm tours, your artist co-ops, local heritage sites. Those are the types of things that really appeal to this group. And partnering with niche content creators is another incredible opportunity for us, like our food bloggers and our travel writers, of course, but looking for folks to help us create these long form pieces of content that are storytelling about your destination.
Yeah, I love what you said about sort of influencers and niche experts, because while these folks don't want what's popular, they hate feeling like tourists. I think about these folks as coming back from a destination and continuing to email back and forth with people that they met while they were there, that chef that served them that night, or someone that they met who was able to point them to a special place. So for them, it's really more about just getting that, it's the real experience. Okay, so those are the immersives.
Yep.
So think about that. Hold that number one. Okay, let's talk about our trendy planners. So trendy planners live for that picture perfect trip. So yes, they're doing research. Yes, they're looking for experts and influencers. But these folks want to hit those major landmarks, those high profile locations that everybody is oohed and awed about when they've seen their favorite influencers share them. So they love to plan. They don't get stressed about planning, but their planning looks different than the immersives does, because they're actually looking for those high profile,
Mhm.
great views, the places where they can really be seen in the most recognizable places
Right.
that they can go. Mhm.
Yeah.
So curated itineraries. We talked about this. We asked about curated itineraries in the study. And this is a group that really wants that, whether it's a food tour or whether it's a haunted tour or whether it's a nature thing, because then they know they're going to hit all the high points automatically.
Yeah.
Um, those must see spots are really important for them. And right, Pat, they don't want to miss anything that they will later regret when people say, "Oh, wait, you didn't get there? That's the best place." And then they feel like, "Ugh, I didn't do my job."
Yeah, this group is really interesting. And we talked about, the immersives and their planning. Well, the trendy planners, they meticulously organize their itineraries. And this is one of those ones that I'm so glad, when we started this study, I really wanted to kind of learn, okay, how do people view itineraries? And it's fascinating to see that this group really gravitates towards those things. And they're inspired by the trends and the recommendations from trusted sources. And this group, for them, their travel experience is all about optimizing every single moment of their trip. And they want to, as you said, ensure that they are experiencing the highlights of a destination. And the trendy planners, they're methodical yet inspired, and they're always looking for ways to make their trip better. And again, drawn to those well-reviewed attractions and those curated experiences so that they know that they're making the right choices here. And these are the folks that are scrolling their social media feeds. They're looking for those best photo spots, or, they're reading some of these detailed itineraries that are crafted by the influencers that they trust and follow. And they are greatly inspired and influenced by social proof. And so they're often going to choose these destinations that are endorsed by the influencers and praised by their peers. For them, the validation is critical. Like it is super important to them. And they want to know that they are not only making the right choices, but that they're getting that social approval that they seek.
Yep.
And so, the ways that we can speak to these trendy planners is building these plug and play itineraries. Again, this was one of the things that I really wanted to learn about, and I'm so glad, to have proof of that these groups of people are using these things. They're looking for the perfect weekend in your destination, and they're wanting those things fully mapped out. And you can embed those, of course, in your website or whatever type of mapping software you may use. And partnering with influencers, which I know that a lot of people are doing, but especially looking, for those experts that mirror their interests, like history buffs, for example, or foodies, and use those voices on their channels and their platforms to help present your content and your destination to these trendy planners. And then I think it's important too is, thinking about like dynamic retargeting campaigns that can follow up with tailored content about like, are you still planning? Here's what past visitors loved about their trip. And so there's some really exciting ways that we can reach these trendy planners.
Yeah, these folks are not looking for surprises at
Nope.
all. They want a really well planned trip that gives them all of the highlights so that they know when they left, they made the right choices. And if they're keeping up with anybody after they leave your destination, it's probably the local influencers that
Yep.
they met, that they have their own audience and they can share that experience with them and even get more visibility for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Independent explorers. These folks do not plan. They hate planning. In fact, it's really antithetical to the dream trip that they want. They want to wake up and literally say, maybe we should go somewhere today.
Yep.
So for them, it's all about that flexibility and that freedom. It's all about sort of stumbling over wonderful discoveries that are fulfilling to them that might not have ever been found in a more rigorous planning process. And they want authentic local finds. They don't want big ticket attractions. They don't want to be where everybody else is. They don't like crowds. They really like to get off the beaten path and do it on literally a moment's notice. Pat, it sounds like we're having some issues with the chat function. So after we get through this and the fourth one, if you can certainly go into the Q&A if you want to share whatever segment you think you might be.
Thank you, Susan.
You
Thank
bet.
you. And so, the independent explorers have said they love to throw caution to the wind. And they truly embrace that unexpected piece. And for them, that the joy in their travel experience is in that discovery. They don't want to follow the set path. They want to create their own adventure. And these folks are the quintessential, I mean, just free spirits of travel. And they find joy in those unexpected twists and turns of their trip that sometimes folks get frustrated by. Not this group. They absolutely love when things kind of get upended. And again, they're spontaneous. They make decisions while they're on the go. And they might stumble upon a hole in the wall pub or take a detour to try like a local dish in an old restaurant that is off the beaten path. That is what they're looking for. And they
Mm-hmm.
thrive on that thrill of uncovering these hidden treasures. And they prefer the destinations that offer them this sense of freedom and surprise and open-endedness. And so some ideas on how we can reach them is, first of all, creating mobile first content, which I know everybody's doing already, but make sure your stuff works on mobile because these folks are in market making decisions based upon things that they find. So create that dynamic mobile first content using geo-targeted content as well. You can ping them with different things of you're near this specific trailhead that you may want to discover.
Mm-hmm.
And using language that really invites them to explore, like choose your own adventure. I may be showing my age here, but I always loved those kind of books as a kid where it was turn to page 43 if you want to do this. Those
Yeah.
are the types of things that really appeal to this group. And then, if you have opportunities for real-time engagement with people through SMS or even push notifications, if that's something that's within your tech stack, this is the type of group that you can really hit with that type of content.
Yeah, I think that one of the things we saw with this group is because they want to stay away from people when they travel, the great outdoors is a real draw for them. And so they're more likely to want to bring a tent, put up a tent, than stay in a hotel necessarily. So I think if you're someplace like beautiful West Virginia, the opportunity to get on a list that you will send out, hey, last minute deal, we've got some openings on this trailhead, or we've got an opportunity on this thing, or we've got a room here at the last minute, that's going to appeal to them. They're going to reward destinations that really feel are helping them make discoveries themselves,
Yep.
as opposed to fitting them into a particular box that another traveler might want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cautious budgeters. Um, these folks are very price sensitive. They do travel, but they're focused on getting the most out of every dollar. And an interesting thing we found with this group, sometimes things associate in a mindset that you might not expect. These folks have this budget concern.
Mhm.
They also have a safety uh, awareness. And so they really want a safe trip that avoids stress for them, and they want to get as much as they can out of every dollar that they spend. So clear pricing, no hidden fees, no surprises. They want to know that they're staying someplace safe.
Yep.
They want to know that their travel through your area is going to be safe, and things that they can get that just sort of make them secure that they're going to be okay are going to help.
Yeah. And this group is really interesting to me. And the cautious budgeter, they approach their travel with a very careful eye. And they have to ensure that their experiences align with their budgets, of course, but then also just the things that they value. And for them, travel is about relaxation and predictability, the complete opposite of our previous group, who was just, hey, what's happening over there? Let's go find out. This group, they really need to make sure that they are mitigating any kind of unnecessary risks. And they seek the value, they seek the assurance, and they prioritize these destinations that meet these high standards for cost effectiveness and comfort. And cautious budgeters are meticulous researchers. They are, again, looking for the clear pricing. They're looking for very detailed itineraries. And again, those assurances of safety. And the off-peak travel times, that's what appeals to these. So this is a great opportunity for us to reach these groups when, other things may be slowing down, our shoulder season types of things. This group is a perfect fit for that. And they like these activities that provide value without breaking the bank. So, think about your local parks and all these free and low cost types of attractions. That's the type of activities and things that are going to appeal to them.
Yeah, and off season, like you said, where they're not just going to be shoulder to shoulder with a million other people.
Exactly. And those
Yep,
crowded tourist areas, that is not for this
that
group.
doesn't make them feel safe.
No,
Right.
not at all. And
Mhm.
so, some ways to reach this group is, lead with the value messaging, be very specific. I've got this 3-night package and activities for $400 or whatever the case may be. Continue to highlight your safety and the crowd avoidance with things, like quietest hiking trails or our favorite off-peak adventures and things of that nature that again will appeal to this group and their mindset of seeking solitude, essentially. And
Mhm.
lead into the reviews and the peer validation. Your TripAdvisor badges, your Google review scores, and things like that can be really effective with this group. And build, you hear the term nurturing sequences and, email nurturing campaigns and things like that. This is a perfect fit for this group because, being the meticulous researcher that they are, these folks, their booking cycle is much, much longer. And so plan for that accordingly with your campaigns. And, you can use your emails to reinforce value and safety and answer objections, but just kind of keep in mind that the cautious budgeters, when you're trying to reach them, this is more of a long play as opposed to, our independent explorers and things like that,
Mhm.
ready to go at the drop of a
At the
hat.
drop of a hat. Yeah. So, Pat, can you go back up really quickly to
Yeah.
that set that shows all of these
Oh,
side
yeah,
by
sure.
side? So, I just want you who are with us here today to sort of think about these four. I certainly know people in every one of these segments, and I travel with people in every one
Yeah.
of these segments. It's really important to understand that these are all good prospects for you. There is no difference between these groups in terms of their income or even how much they're willing to spend on a trip, but it is a mindset. Those cautious budgeters are not cheap. They are careful with their money. They want a return on investment. Those independent explorers may not stay in a hotel, but that doesn't mean they're not spending money on food and activities and things like that that are important. So Chelsea says she's an enthusiastic immersive. I love that. But if you can sort of put yourself in the shoes of one of these groups, and you can think about people who are in another of these groups, you are well on the way to thinking differently about your marketing and how you can reach different people based on how they feel about this whole thing and what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's talk demographics for a second, Pat. I'm
Sure.
sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt.
No, 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 no. Let's get down here and look at, yeah, here's
Okay, so here's something really important to understand, everybody. These segments, with two exceptions, have no demographic differences between them. They spread across all age groups from under 20 all the way to over 70, all genders, all household income levels, all family makeups. I mean, they look astonishingly similar on paper. Now, the two exceptions are those trendy planners, those really looking for that photo perfect opportunity,
Mhm.
are significantly more likely to be under 40. 41% of them are under 40 compared to, you can see the percentages for the other segments there on the left. And in fact, 27% of them are under 30. So it's not that there aren't older folks in this group too, but they do tend to swing younger. The other thing is that those independent explorers are significantly more likely to be men than we see in the other segments. And so it's just something to be aware of. You don't want to bucket everyone and assume that, every independent explorer is a man. In fact, the minority are in the study because the majority are women. But it is helpful maybe to think about in some segments, you're more likely to be speaking to someone that's under 30 or under 40, and you might be more likely to be speaking to someone who's a man. So, we all walk in with assumptions when we see these pictures and we think about these folks. I encourage you to try to put those assumptions away about demographics, because as you'll be able to see in the detailed data, Pat's going to tell you how you're going to get at the actual data visualization for all of this. It's going to let you see this data and explore it. And I think you'll be surprised at how little these folks differ in terms of their demographics. You just can't plan for this that way.
Yeah, that,
Yeah.
that was one of the real eye-opening things for me, is just thinking about how evenly distributed, these different groups are. And I think that there's some incredibly useful information, but it also just kind of proves the point to where age and those types of things, they're important and we can layer them in there. But these travel mindsets, I think, are going to be really powerful tools to help us shape our campaigns and our strategies moving forward.
Yeah.
So, what next, right?
Mhm.
We got all this information. What do we do with it? And this is where the rubber hits the road because, all too often I find, and I'm guilty of this myself, it's like, oh, here's a new report. You'll read the report. But sometimes we don't always put it into action. But so here are some ways that we can start to look at how we can use this type of information and tie it into things that are actionable and to start reshaping how we build out our strategies and our campaigns. And so, tying or these segments rather to our analytics. Now, if you've heard me talk about data and analytics and the changes in technology today, we know that our website analytics are just one small piece of the puzzle now. That those used to be the de facto source of truth, if you will. And it's still incredibly important and very useful. But I just want to continue to reiterate that it is just one piece of the puzzle that you need to look at, but there's some great opportunities to leverage this information as you look at some of the information within your analytics. Like, for example, your most read blogs, okay? Take a look at what types of content they are. Are they about, those hidden gems, for example? If so, those are your immersives, right? And your itinerary traffic. If you're just getting hammered on different types of things with itineraries, guess what? Those are our trendy planners that are looking for those spots of where should I go get my photo taken? What do I need to see while I visit this destination? You're really mobile and map heavy type of usage and things like that, really pay attention to what that type of content is looking like because those are your explorers who are out there in the field and they're looking for things to do while they're actively traveling. Obviously, your deals, your packages, and all of your value-based types of offerings that you have out there, that's your cautious budgeter. Your budgeters are your bread and butter. That's where you're starting to see more and more traffic. But just starting to look at those types of information and connecting the dots here is going to start to hopefully, get us all thinking in some different ways about how we can build out strategies and campaigns.
Yeah, Pat, which segment are you? I'm curious.
I'm actually, I think, a combination of both, but the cultural immersive, I mean, that's
That's your jam.
yeah. I always
Mhm.
love kind of figuring out when we travel, I always want to find the off the beaten path kind of, pubs and places to eat and music venues, things like that.
hmm Yeah, it's interesting because somebody said in the Q&A that they sort of feel aspects of both of them, and
Yep.
that's really normal. I think what you need to think about is that these are based on people who, whether they realize it or not, they share a set of attitudes that are linked together for them. So, for example, those cautious budgeters don't like crowds, but neither do the independent explorers, but they don't like them for different reasons. And the cautious budgeters do have this budget
Yep.
issue that doesn't show up in that other one. So, it is possible for an individual to feel like strongly about this or that. But when you look at the sets of attitudes, which you can in the full research, that really define these folks, most people are going to say, yeah, I guess this is really me and I've got a little bit of that, you
Yeah.
know. So, yeah, I'm not surprised you're an immersive.
Well, and I think that, and thanks for bringing that up because I think that's like where some of the real opportunity lies, So it's if you create content for each of these segments, it doesn't mean that you're shunning the other segments.
Right.
It just means that you're appealing to that kind of leading type of, mindset for that type of group. So, there's ways to appeal to the same individual with the different types of content that may, kind of, oh, I have some tendencies over here and I have some tendencies over there. Um,
Sure.
but I think that there's some real opportunities there to learn more about who it is that you're reaching right now by just kind of diving into your content with, some of this information at hand.
Yeah, sure. And depending on your destination, they may not all be acquisition targets from
Right.
you. I mean, you may really your main appeal may be a national park. And so your sort of acquisition group between these segments may look very different than if you're a highfalutin famous ski resort. that gets famous people all the time, so this is just what's out there. It doesn't dictate what you need to do, but I think as you think about what segments you want the most and that make the most sense for your destination, like you said, you can really drill down and offer some very specific things. And one of the things that you talk about, which I just love, is getting this type of information out to the other organizations supporting those travelers in your community. If you're a CVB, that doesn't mean that you don't talk to and share this research with the people who are running the hotels and the restaurants and the tour operators and that kind of stuff, because if everybody understands that this is really what's out there in terms of the landscape of travelers you're going to get, it can make them so much more responsive to what individual types of travelers need fairly easily. It's not guesswork anymore. You can pretty much
Yeah.
figure out which one somebody is in. And then you've got offerings across the experience that are really, just really rewarding for each traveler type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that one of the pieces that led led us to this research was, just wanting to have the information to back up that we should not be speaking to everybody, in the same way. And it's quite easy to do that, and it's effective. It's effective, but we have opportunities to be more effective and to be more pinpoint and to be more strategic. And so I think that that's one of, kind of the common pitfalls that I think that we succumb to, and that if we take this information, make it actionable, we can appeal, to these different groups of people, speaking to them in the way that they want to be spoken to. Video for planners, and we've got user generated content for our immersives. I'll reiterate the mobile content, which should just be a given in this day and age, but please make sure that that type of content that would appeal to your explorers is going to work properly in that mobile environment. And then again, the price driven types of things, those budgeters. And I think that, again, looking at how to retrain your creative, and what I say by retrain, it doesn't mean redo at all, because our creative is great. Everybody has really strong creative, and it's just really thinking about how can we leverage the creative, how can we speak to these different attitudes, and appeal to them, that makes our marketing efforts, our budgets more effective. It makes our strategies more pinpoint. It makes the types of things that we're measuring more important, I guess, more actionable, more relatable. And so I think that there's just some tremendous opportunities for some ways that we can think about incorporating all of this information.
Yeah, I mean, this can really upend your ideation around your marketing.
That's
It's
right.
a different way to think about your audience. And, I think we can all relate. No one appreciates an email that says, "Hello, woman 25 to 49." Even if you are a woman 25 to 49, that is just simply not resonant.
Yeah.
And if anything, it deteriorates trust, because people are like, "Come on, can't you do any better than that?" Right? Um, and I think one of the things that people don't expect when they work with this kind of research, Pat, in their strategy, it's you really need to think more about fishing than hunting, right? Because unlike someone's age or someone's income, you can't see that and aim at it.
Right.
This is something that's happening between the ears.
That's right.
So what you really need to do is understand this landscape and then put up bait for the segments that you want. Like you mentioned, put up specific things that people can sign up for that aren't for everybody, but are for them, and they go, "Wow, this is for me." I did a study once for a destination, and one of the groups that really wanted to spend a bunch of time outside, their number one concern was the weather.
Yeah.
They put a weather widget on their website on the front page. and it got a ton of traffic. That group just loved it. So it doesn't have to be complicated, but it is about showing them that you understand them and are making room for them and are providing resources and support specifically to people like them. So that could be a little bit of a mind screw in terms of your marketing. But once you get a hold of that, then watch magical things happen. Watch your team sit down and come up with ideas for each of these segments and see what kind of creative stuff comes up. I spent many years around a conference table trying to figure out what to do for women 25 to 49, which is why I started my company, because it's just not a very fun way to do marketing, to
Right.
say,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and that's where I think that it's really important, especially as, we all grapple with the changes in technology, the changes in media consumption, the changes in where people get their information, that we have to be continuously getting better about how we create strategy and then employ the tactics for those strategies. And this type of information is going to help us really hone in on our audiences. It's going to help us create the content and present the information that is most important to them so that we can appeal to them and get them into the cycle instead of putting out, here is this one singular type of message. We're going to do it in these specific channels, and
Mhm.
we're going to hope that we hit the right mark. And so, I encourage everybody to just take, maybe one campaign, or just take one of these segments and, start looking at, your creative, start looking at, your content and thinking about your strategies and your measurement strategies and how you can apply these things to make the most of some of this type of information. And the other thing that is really important about this that I'm super excited about is this webinar. I'm so grateful that you all are here. Susan, I'm grateful that you're here, and Sarah, thank you for looking very interested there in the corner. But this is a big deal for us as an organization, and working with you, Susan, has been something that has really been informative and helped us reframe our thinking about how we approach this, because it's only going to continue to change, and we're only going to continue to have to hold our feet to the fire, each other, holding our feet to the fire to be strategic. Again, the strategies are more important now than ever, especially because of this fragmentation that we speak about so often, and just the consumption and the tools and how people get their information. I'll come back to like the website analytics, which, for years and years was what you referred to. But, now if somebody is searching for you and they find information in Chat GPT, that's in a black box, and you don't know. You can't really see. There are some techniques that can be used with that, but it makes your messaging, it makes your content, and it makes your approach to these audiences even more important. And the last thing that I'll say, and I started to say it a second ago, is being so geeked up about this. We have essentially a year's worth of content that we are going to be sharing with everybody as we continue to explore this ourselves. Susan has provided us with some great reports and some great information, and the ability to, kind of get into her head to help us understand what these things mean. We got a lot of stuff to unpack. Yeah, and that's putting it mildly. And we're going to have a lot of different things that we're going to be speaking to you throughout the year. Not only about these segments, but again, some more tactical types of things that you can start to think about as you're building your strategies.
I love that, Pat. I'm curious if anybody who's listening is getting some new ideas just from the conversation that we've had so far. If you want to throw something in the Q&A, even if it's not a question, just about sort of whether this has maybe opened some opportunities for you. My real hope is that some of the folks who see this data will see an opportunity to attract visitors to their area that they did not anticipate. Maybe they didn't think they could get cautious budgeters, or maybe they didn't think they could get those trendy planners. And I hope that now it at least opens up some conversation as to whether there are opportunities to broaden the reach for your destination, to get travelers that may not have seen you as an ideal place to go before. So that often happens with this segmentation. So I hope that that gives people just sort of a new way to look at what we market day in and day out. Sometimes when you're in the bottle, it's hard to see the label.
Exactly.
But I think there's some really cool stuff here for destinations to think about. And I just hope it's helpful. And it's been really fun to do. And I'm super excited to see your content over the rest of the year. And as we said earlier, one of the things that people will be able to do is dive into the research itself and explore it and look at the data. Whether you're a data scientist or not, it's really easy to go through and explore and maybe learn some things about people in your part of the country, or people if you're targeting a particular demographic with your destination. So lots more to come, as you said.
Yep.
But I think we have a few more minutes if anybody does have questions that they want to ask. I think there's one in there, Sarah, about the slides, right?
There is, yeah, folks. Jennifer is asking if we'll get the slides from the presentation. And so, yes, of course, there's a recording that'll be coming. So stay tuned for that.
Great. Does anybody else have any questions now for Pat's brilliant marketing mind or my relatively nerdy research brain? Oh, Jennifer, thank you for coming. I hope everybody found it helpful. That's been a fun conversation.
Yeah.
You know, travel is one of those things that we all do. I love doing studies where I'm like, oh, I'm in this community, I'm in this audience. How do I think? Like I do some studies where I'm like, nope, I don't work in local government, or nope, I don't, but I don't make large manufacturing components. But this one's really fun. Anna says thank you too. Thank you,
It's
Anna.
been really eye-opening for me, and again, I've been doing this for a long time, and it was really nice to get assurances on some things, but also just it's nice to get a little kick in the pants, if you will, like you really need to be thinking about this a little bit differently. And I think that that's an important part for all of us, especially in this time, that we are flexible, that we are able to shift our opinions no matter how long standing they may be, no matter how long you may have done something this way. I think that there's some really compelling information here that can open our eyes and really help us all become better, and smarter. And listen, those of you that know me, you hear me say this all the time. I'm working together and helping each other navigate all of these changes that we are experiencing right now. Because listen, things are not going to stop. It's
That's so true.
coming
I
at
mean,
us
the
fast.
pandemic was crazy for this industry, and those organizations that survived did so because they collaborated together and they supported each other and they made it through. But, how audiences decide and think about travel changed a lot
Yep.
after the pandemic, and as we get younger consumers into this market, we see more changes about the authenticity that they want and the immersive experience that interests them, and that sort of visible social proof component, which really wasn't a big deal before the pandemic in the same way. So we're dealing with a whole bunch of kids who grew up in a really different environment than you and I did, Pat.
Yeah.
And it's great to get insights that help us understand them and serve them a little bit better. I don't see any other questions.
Yeah. Anybody else? Last call on questions, and then we'll give you maybe 10 minutes back of your time. I, Again, I'm really grateful, Susan. Thank you for being here with us, sharing your experience, your expertise, your insights, and helping us navigate this project with just, expertise and the guidance and going through this, because it can be a daunting task if you haven't really worked on one of these things before. But really grateful for everybody's time. Thank you for being here with us today. We have everybody's email address, and we'll be following up with more information. Sarah, did another question pop in there?
There
Just
came
got some.
in, it was good feedback.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I'm so glad people found it helpful and fun to go through. I loved it. It's always such a joy to work with real experts like you and your team, Pat. So this is a great way to start my day out here in Arizona. So thank you very much for
All
that.
right, Susan.
Hope
Well,
everybody has a great week.
we'll see you in Denver soon.
Yeah, looking
All
forward
right,
to it.
everybody.
Bye,
Have a great
everyone.
day. Thank you all.